Alright everybody, while you saw the video of the car running, I just want to do a little kind of a recap. Some stuff that happened when I first started it. You can see my headers are a nice shade of blue, which I don't really care. But when I first got it started, the timing was too far retarded, like quite a bit. It did start up and run obviously, but it backfired out the carb a couple times, and the headers were glowing orange. When I shut it off, it backfired out the exhaust, so cranked the timing up quite a bit, got it to run better, fixed the lean issue with the headers and all that stuff, and then it started overheating because I only put water in it yesterday thinking, well, it shouldn't get that hot, but I didn't have the electric fan on it yet, so I shut it off again, put the electric fan on, ran it for about 20 minutes or so, shut it off, and then I need to adjust the carburetor. I'm not exactly sure if it's going to be the right carburetor for it or not. It's a 600 CFM Edelbrock. It seems to run rich at idle, but as you can probably see, I have a 1/2-inch wood spacer underneath it. I think that's an open plenum spacer, and it kind of seems like I'm not getting a very good signal on the carb because the idle air screws don't really do a whole lot when I adjust them. But I haven't really set it at idle and just let it run at idle yet to check that. So I may or may not need to take that spacer out. If I do, I'll probably have to rerun my fuel lines because, as you can see, my 4-corner cooling setup on this thing might hit. I think it would probably be okay actually. So probably take that out if I need to. There was a reason I put that spacer in. I really can't remember why at the moment, but I had put it in for a reason. I might have put it in, if for nothing else, to try to combat the run-on or the dieseling issue that you have with some Edelbrocks. They tend to get hot and boil the fuel in the bowl. But it did run pretty good. You heard it in the video, or you'll see it in the video after this. One of my biggest hurdles that I have to work on now is the steering. So if you can see down here, this is the pitman arm, or the drag link rather, and this is a 52 Chevy pickup rear end. All the steering components in here are all factory stuff, and I kind of wanted to keep it that way because it's fairly easy to set it up, and I think it will actually combat bump steer if I use the linear motion in the forward and backward direction of the factory parts versus making the drag link go from the driver's side tire all the way to the passenger side and then have the tie rods come back like you see on most gassers. The reason those have bump steer is that long rod that goes all the way to the other side of the car, as it moves up and down, it actually changes the length. So it has the same effect when it moves up and down as pushing it in and out like this, so it actually causes the tires to wobble. I don't want that to happen. So right now what I have, this is a GM, I believe, Saginaw steering box, like out of a pickup truck. So I can set this thing up here, and you can see that theoretically something like this would work as long as the pitman arm goes in the forward and backwards motion. So I would have to take this one off and reclock it because right now it basically is meant to be straight towards the steering shaft input, and it goes side to side. Theoretically I could use a gearbox like this. What I would like to have is one that comes in at a 45-degree angle like this, and obviously not this same size. I would probably have to use something that goes on the inside of the frame rail and then has the pitman arm coming out over the leaf spring there and have a really short drag link. But I don't know if that's going to work. I mean, theoretically I could probably, I think a T-bucket steering box comes in at a 45-degree angle like this and then has a straight output shaft on the bottom, so something like that may work. But here's part of the problem why I haven't been able to figure this out yet. Let me move my hand here. This teardrop shaped hole right here, this is where the steering normally came through, and if you look at it, when the steering came through, it literally points about right here at the header, so it's in between all the pipes. Now I've seen people come out of here with a U-joint that angles over and goes right down this hole down to the bottom, which I could do if I'm using an inside steering box. You can see there's a pretty clear shot down there to the inside of the frame. So if I was using an inside steering box on the inside of the frame, that would work. It'd basically be a short jog U-joint coming over and then another one going down, and I could use probably some of the same mounting holes that I had from the original steering box, as long as the pitman arm comes out somewhere over here, and then it would go forward and backwards like this. which would then in turn make my my drag link go forward and backwards, thus making it steer. But again, if I do that, my drag link is only going to be about that long, so about probably 7 inches long. I don't know if there's an issue with having it that short. I don't think so, because basically it's just going to walk back and forth like this a little bit. As the pitman arm goes forward, it's going to go out a little bit. As it goes in the middle, it returns to the middle. Then when it goes in the other direction, it goes out and then back in a little bit. So, I mean, there's plenty of wiggle room side to side on this if that worked, as long as a short pitman arm doesn't matter. But that's kind of what I'm working on in the steering. That's going to be a little bit of a hassle to figure out still. If you guys have any suggestions, by all means, let me know. And then once I get that done, next I have to do my clutch. You can see my connection right here for my my slave cylinder and the rod. I already have all the stuff for that, but I have to hook that up. And then I have to figure out a clutch pedal somewhere here on the firewall, which what I was planning on doing somewhere in this area, or maybe I'll have to plate this with some heavier plate and then drill a hole in it for my master cylinder to come through. But underneath the dash, I'm just going to have a piece of angle iron bolted up here on the inside for support on the firewall, and then I'm going to have 2 struts going up to the bottom of the dash with a hole in it for the pivot point on the clutch, and then I'll have to figure out some type of spring, which isn't a big deal. You just need a single spring. And then the master cylinder, the hose is going to go down to the transmission, so I got to route that past the headers as well. And then brakes, drive shaft, which I have a drive shaft. I have a Mark Williams drive shaft, which is wicked overkill for this car, but a buddy of mine bought it and it was the wrong length. So I'm hoping it's the right length for this. I think it is. It's 54.5 center to center on the U-joints. And then if you add in the length of my slip yoke, I think I needed about 58 and a half, 59, something like that for the full length of my drive shaft. So I think it'll work. Hopefully it's not too long for my car. But yeah, so there's a little update on it. I got my gauges installed. All the lights are hooked up on these. All these gauges work properly now. The orange light there, that's a charge indicator, so when I turn the key on, that turns on until the alternator starts charging, then it shuts off. And the green light, I'm probably going to hook up to my backup light switch, because I might use a toggle switch for my backup lights. And then I got all my gauges in my dash. Everything there was working, except my tachometer, which I have right here. My Equus tach that I had in there was working fine yesterday. I had it calibrated for the right RPM. It was working. Shut the car off, went to start it again. When these ones boot up, they do like a full sweep, so they go from 0 to 8,000 and then back to 0. Then they come up to your RPM. So it did a full sweep, but instead of going back to 0, it stayed here at what is, 1,400 RPM, something like that. And it's been stuck there ever since. And powering it down, powering it up, trying to use the calibrate button here on the back, nothing fixes it. So I sent Equus an email. Hopefully they'll replace it for free, because that thing's brand new. For an e-brake, because in my state we have to have an e-brake. I got this thing, I think it's from a Volkswagen Jetta or a Golf or something like that, so probably going to mount it somewhere up here on the floor, maybe over here, somewhere out of the way. But that's going to be my e-brake. I suppose I could mount it under the dash if I really wanted to. The original e-brake was one of those pull-out ones, and then you twist it and push it back in. I wanted to reuse that, but probably not going to work out too well. So I got this one. I can get the leather shift boot and everything for it, but it's a pretty simple design. You basically just hook the fronts of your cables into this thing. It's got a lot of adjustability on it, and it's super simple to use. You just pull it up, and then you push the button to release it, and you drop it back down. So the whole thought behind that is, again, very simple to use. It'll look kind of dumb, but whatever. It's a hot rod. I mean, it's not supposed to be a show winner in my particular case. I just have to have an e-brake on it. So that's where I'm at with the car. You can see the interior is pretty much completely stripped out still. For the back panel back there between where the seat was and the trunk, I have some galvanized steel. I'm going to use Tech screws and put that in. I got to do something for the back panel up there under the window. I'll probably just make something out of wood and then maybe stretch some vinyl on it or something like that. The headliner, I'm probably just going to scrape all this crap out of the car, tape off the dash and everything, and just shoot the whole thing with truck bed liner. I did that in my pickup truck, and that stuff lasted forever. But a lot of little things left to do on the car. But I will pick away at it, and you guys will see updates as we go. Thanks for watching.